Good evening, everybody. My name is Eric Hodson. I'm with the Arizona region of USA Volleyball, and tonight we want to welcome you to John Kessel presenting Practice Design for Optimal Results. A couple of quick things before we get started. I want to thank the Arizona Interscholastic Association and the Executive Director, David Hines, and his assistant, Taylor Cody, for their help in organizing this. This is the first time we've ever done anything with the Arizona region and the AIA in conjunction, so we're really happy that they're with us on this. The new AIA volleyball guidelines are now available on their website, which is aiaonline.org. If you cannot find them, please feel free to email me. Under the chat button, you will find my email addresses. You're more than welcome to email me, and I'll send you that as well. Also, on Wednesday is the third of our webinars in conjunction with the AIA. The U.S. national team men's coach, Mike Wall, will be talking about science in volleyball and an introduction to motor learning. That will be at 7:30, not 7 o'clock, but 7:30 till 8:30, 8:45 on Wednesday. And so if you haven't signed up for that one, please do. And finally, before I introduce John, there's also on your panel a questions button. Feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation. I'll get them to John, and if there's questions after the presentation, John has agreed to stay and is happy to answer any and all questions, whether it has to do with practice design or whatever. He is more than happy. John Kessel has been a pioneer of our game, and in one capacity or another for the last 45 years, 35 of which he spent at USA Volleyball before retiring this year. He has been one of the guiding coaches of both junior and sand and sitting volleyball in our country. And coaching education, there's probably no one that's done more for volleyball coaching than John has. He's had his hand in the growth of beach, of sitting and junior volleyball throughout his illustrious career, and he's been honored as one of the most influential people in our sport. And he also, a couple of years ago, won the Friar Award, which is the highest honor that USA Volleyball can give. He is a frequently requested speaker all over the world on youth sports, and honestly, we couldn't be more grateful and happier that he's with us tonight. So I'd like you all to welcome John Kessel.
Thank you, E. You know, to everybody that's listening, I'm basically going to spend the next hour or so talking about how dumb of a young coach I was, and now 50 years later, kind of the things I've learned the hard way. And I'm going to pick on myself a lot. And I hope you see the why, because we feel that the coach who knows why beats the coach who knows how. And I really hope I can get these whys across. So here's the first word on the slide. You know, why do I do Arizona region webinars? Well, there's great people like Eric. You have the best outreach coordinator in the nation. You don't realize it because you don't know the other 40 regions of USA Volleyball, but he is the best. And yeah, I've spent a lot, 65 nations and all 50 states multiple times and blah, blah, blah. Got a son that plays professionally over in Berlin. But my roots are doing what we're talking about here tonight, helping newer coaches get better quicker by not making the mistakes I made and understanding how those mistakes can be better done, because mistakes are all part of learning. So this takes me back to the first thing I did in Italy. I played professionally in Italy for a while, and I had free time. And in my free time, I did youth volleyball. And this is a mini volley of Italy cartoon with Disney that we did, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, translated to qui, quo, and qua. Here, there, and over there is what that translates to. And they're coached by Sport Goofy and everything. But in '85, I went to this mini volleyball symposium in Japan, Tokyo, and the guy has passed away with his hands on his hips. but he was from East Germany, Horstbacke, and he and Professor Toyota I worked with for many, many years. Because let me explain something early here. We learn by doing, you know that. My kids watched me drive my car for 16 years, but until they drove the car, they didn't know how to drive. So for your teams, if you're a young coach or a new coach, to get better faster, which is in part what we're here to talk about, you got to stop playing 6-on-6 in practice, and you got to do more triples and doubles. And that's because, since we learn by doing, if there's 12 people out there practicing and only one ball flying around, 11 are watching and 1 are learning. And that's really ineffective learning, because this is about learning, not just about volleyball. And you learn by doing. And, I mean, imagine if there were, how long it would take to learn to ride a bike if there were 12 kids and 1 bicycle. You get your own bike and you learn how to ride a bike, but you gotta do something similar in your gym so that the kids learn the most important skill in our sport. And it ain't serving, and it ain't passing, and it ain't spiking. It's reading. It's anticipating. Some of you that have played the game and are now coaching get frustrated from the bench because you go, God, didn't they see that? And the answer is no. And the person who did that the worst was me in the 70s and early 80s, before I started to learn the science of motor learning. How do you learn skill? I was teaching the way I was taught. I was controlling the practice. I got more reps than anybody else out there because I was throwing every ball. And never mind the fact that nobody throws a ball in practice, in a match. The reality was, I can see myself, God, it's just so painful to watch myself back then. I can see myself standing in front of the net, throwing balls to make players hustle and flop around like fish. And it's a defensive drill I was doing at the time, and everybody else is clapping as this one girl is flopping around and hustling. And in that instance, I'm getting 50% of the reps. Every time I run a drill, a circle drill, where I'm hitting the ball over the net and they're all running and handing me a ball and they're running in circles, I'm getting the vast majority of the reps. And I don't play. So one of the slides later here came from an awesome international mathematician award-winning gal. I happened to sit in the exit row flying across to Europe one time, and she was getting this award in math. And she said, the reason I'm getting this award is because I say never steal the pencil from the child, because loving parents and teachers help math students solve the problem by grabbing the pencil and then writing the solution down as the kid watches. But when you steal the pencil from the child, they don't think math the same way. And I just went, whoa, that's exactly like I did in volleyball when I was young. I stole the ball from the players, even though I will never play. So that's one of the top 5 things I hope you realize after we're done. The why of why they're setting the ball, even though they don't set well, is far better than me tossing the ball so practice looks good, or far better than for them to see an actual set by a teammate ball than even me setting as a coach, because they're going to have to read their team's sets, not my sets. And so, to be honest, I can't really imagine, other than in a free ball wash game, that I ever really handle the ball and touch it. They touch all the balls. So let's get on to these slides and kind of cover some stuff. Yeah, I think we make it too hard. I want to keep it simple. I know that the first ball comes over the net. That's reality. So you want, if you're a new program and you're not too experienced, you don't get a lot of club time to get more experience because they're playing basketball and softball or whatever. You want to get really good at serving. And if you do, you're going to win more games, because winning the serve-receive battle is perhaps more important than any of the other fights of the hitter blocker or the setter against the blockers or all these other mini battles that are going on. If you can serve receive your own tough serves and get them up at least so you can get the ball back over, and you can serve really well, you're going to win a lot more games, even though you may not spike really well and set really well. So the first ball, though, happens to come over a net. That's reality. This is called training in reality. If you want to put a little thing up on your chalkboard or on your net, just train in reality. And we'll talk about how I didn't do that pretty quickly here. So then you touch the ball 1, 2, or 3 times. And after the second contact, the third must go over the net. And that third ball must go over a net. Okay. So I'm just going to say, and you'll see a slide on this that makes me throw up from beach volleyball. I'm just going to say one of the most important slides here is that from the start of practice until the end of practice, all of you listening should use the net the entire time. The entire time. Young John Kessel took a half hour to set up the net, and then our players ran in and they warmed up by running, not by playing volleyball. That was a mistake. You warm up by playing small-sided games, one-on-one over the net, but that's not what I did. We ran in circles, then we stretched, which is a waste of time for volleyball. They don't need to stretch. They can just start small and go bigger. And then we partner peppered, where I'd spike at Eric and he'd dig the ball back to me, and then I'd spike at Eric again and he'd dig the ball back to me. And then we did passing games and we did all these things. And sometimes it was a half hour until a ball went over the net. That, again, was one of the biggest mistakes. The game starts with the first ball coming over, and after you touch it 2 times, the third ball has to go over the net. I didn't do that. And then, you know what, you guys, I hope you learn from this. If you're letting your kids do it, and stop doing it so you get back on track. I then stood against the wall and I spiked the ball down to the floor, and it bounced off the floor and up off the wall and back to me, and I hit it again. And I was working on what I would call wrist snap, and I'm working on hitting the ball power and all this other stuff. And what I was learning to do is hit a ball under the net in a game. If I became the Olympic gold medalist at wall spiking and you put me on your team, hey, we've got John Kessel, the Olympic gold medalist at wall spiking, and he hits every ball under the net. Put him on the bench. He can't hit the ball over the net, which is what we've got to do in a game. Yes, God, I hurt just thinking about it. So Eric's going to send you an article called From Positive to Great. And in it, in order to save time, you're going to see something that some of you as a player may know, but that we tend to teach and practice most of the bad mistakes. And I'm asking you to start from as soon as this webinar is over, the next time you're in the gym, teaching your kids to make a good mistake as they get to be great. Now, what's an example of that? I'll use spiking again. Spiking into the net will never result in a point. Spiking over the net does a lot of things. A, if it goes out of bounds, it teaches the defense not to touch a ball that's going out. B, it makes, in an incredibly important way, you learn how to hit off the top of the block Taylor Sander and a kid out of Arizona, Riley, or Texas and Arizona, Riley Salmons, these guys learned to hit off the top of the blocker's hands, which if the blocker's hands weren't there, you guys, it would sail out of bounds 100 feet. That's a bad mistake. But because they were hitting off the top of the hands of a blocker, it's a point. But if you hit into the net in front of that same blocker, it will never be a point out of a million tries. So we want to hit over the net a lot and not into the net. And we want to pass the ball. We want to dig a ball up. Now, some of you are playing at a newer level or a lower level against in your league, perhaps. So what's frustrating there is that at the worst level, at the lowest level, the worst team wins. I'm going to say that again. At the lowest level, the worst team wins. Because at the lowest level, the worst team hits the ball back over on one hit and makes you screw up. And while you may say, well, I'm going to play that game and hit the ball back over on one, and now you're playing tennis and not volleyball, at the lowest level, because you're not as skilled as your opponents, they will beat you because you're going to screw up maybe on the pass, you're going to screw up maybe on the set, and you're going to screw up maybe on the hit, and they're just hitting it anywhere over the court, into the court for you to have to deal with. That doesn't last for more than 3 or 4 weeks before a team that can read and a team that plays a lot of speedball and doubles and triples can just beat those teams all the time. But at the beginning, you know, you get in this battle of I want to win and not develop my team. And so you get in this battle of one-hit volleyball, and we want to get rid of that. So positive to grade in all these skills. It's scored at some fun level, and that's another thing about practice. Remember, we're talking about now, how do I design an optimal practice? Well, I can tell you from this slide, one of the mistakes I made as a young coach was I didn't keep score in my games or my drills, what are game-like drills. We'll talk about drills in a little bit too, but if you notice, it says drills are the blank of coaches. Well, in my humble opinion, the answer to that is drugs. I was a young coach, no internet. I bought Bob Bratton's 350 volleyball drills and I was in heaven. And then his sequel came out with 400 plus more volleyball drills. And oh my God, I thought it was even better than I can imagine. And I spent my first years teaching my kids drills and not how to play volleyball. So we want to get rid of drills and we want to do training that is like the game as much as possible, which means the ball comes over the net, it gets passed, set, and hit, and that goes over the net. And that's what we want to get good at. But when I say score to you guys, what I'm saying there is that I coached a bunch of teams, and then in the first match, they looked at the scoreboard in almost like shock because I didn't keep it completely game-like and include scoring, which is part of every game and every point played in practice. The mini volleyball book that you can get free of charge as a PDF, Eric can tell you the links, it's in the handouts. The mini volleyball book is there, and the impact manual has, I think still, maybe 100 ways to change the scoring, but not change the game, because the game needs to be pass, set, hit, and go over the net. I mean, that's what you got to get good at. It's pretty simple. So when all's said and done, some sort of how many in a row, how many out of 10, X before Y, all these kind of concepts let kids know that they're improving. And one of those things for me, of course, is when my kids run up to me, they run up to me and they say, how do we win this one? And when you hear that, you have just gotten them to do an awesome job of helping you be better at volleyball coaching, because they're reminding you to make it like the game. And that includes scoring. So there's a sentence in here at the very end. If you only have one ball above your court, you should be scrimmaging 6-on-6. As we flip through towards the other things, and Eric can guide you in these really well too, you're going to want to be, again, playing doubles, playing triples, and getting more learning in the same amount of time. Optimal learning in practice means, how do I get more learning in the same amount of time than my opponents? All right. So here's the book, and I love this photo. This is our gold medalist Ryan Millar setting a ball to a kid's very first spike. Kind of an aside to practice here, but something for those of you that are going to keep coaching more than 1 year should probably see if you can do. Drop down to the elementary school, drop down to the middle school, and get the middle school kids coaching the elementary school. Get your sophomores and freshmen coaching the middle school kids, because that what you teach, you learn, and develop a pipeline. I have a friend, Sally Coos. She's in the record books of high school. 280 some odd matches in a row won, 10 years without losing a match. And the reason they're so good at freshman year when they come into her high school program is because she's the elementary school teacher, and she teaches them doubles volleyball when they're young. And she gets the middle school kids to be the coaches of the elementary school kids. So here, this boy is hitting his first spike. He has never played volleyball before 5 minutes before this picture. Obviously, the net isn't super high because he's a little kid, but what he did was what we call superhero spike. Ryan, the gold medalist, threw the ball to the kid who did a superhero. He put his hands above his head and he just extended straight out. He just slapped the ball up to Ryan. And Ryan set the kid, and the kid ran up and jumped and hit it. Ryan and I had demonstrated that. We did superhero spike twice, and then we said, go copy us. And this boy steps out and he jumps and hits his first. He's still playing volleyball, by the way. He got hooked right away. But as a young coach, you know what I made my kids do every day and all day long in the beginning and tried to keep kids liking volleyball? I did forearm passing. And the kids were rubbing their arms and going, this sport hurts, and I don't like this sport. This is a painful game. And, you know, Mom, the sadomasochist came to school today. Do you have any ice for my forearms? And, you know, we just don't have really good eye to forearm skills when we're young. You want to hit and set first. So you do what's overhead pass set to the setter who sets to you, and you hit it. And you put up a ribbon or a rope or something down the middle of your only gym court that you've got. And now you've got a lot of net, even though it's just a ribbon. And you play, you get in groups of two. So you got 12 kids in groups of two going pass, set, hit all over the ribbon. And they get good at pass setting and hitting. It's amazing. And yeah, they're not forearm passing at the start. That comes after they've been hooked by spiking and after they've been hooked by serving, because they like to serve because it's in my control, and this other stuff is like, I can't figure it out because the other person didn't put it where I thought it was going. And serving, that's not the case. So after we teach setting, spiking, and serving, then we say, oh, there's this thing called the forearm pass, you know, and you start to do it. So the mini volleyball book has quick start on page 4, and like in 2 pages, it shows how to start your program. But if you look at some of the other things, there's skill info and lesson plans and stuff, and games and tag games and scoring. See a whole chapter on scoring options. It takes up 4 pages, all different ways to score. And Eric can guide you on that too. Now, if you got to go to this. It's okay, you got to leave. I understand, life is busy, but make sure you go to the Tools for a New Coach section of USA Volleyball's website, where we've put the vast majority of key things to get downloaded for free. You don't have to be a member. You're a member of the volleyball family because you're coaching high school and helping us grow the game. So that website is, the Team USA website, and the button is, of course, I'm a new coach. Another link that you should be able to click on when you get this PowerPoint, or whatever way Eric wants you to get this link. These are 25 heuristics, which is a short way of saying key principles in learning ideas. And there's 25 ways and sections in this. And again, we've only got so much time, but this is not an athletic competition. This is a learning competition. If I can teach you faster and we have identical twins, I'm going to win, even though the two teams are identical twin-wise. So what does that mean? It means several things. Today, and with Eric, I can promise you the same thing. We're here to give you information and not criticism. If there's any criticism, it's on me. It's about young John Kessel that wasn't too smart. We're here to give you facts and not opinions. And a little shout out here to the Starlings group that Arizona region does so awesome. If you've got economically disadvantaged kids, talk to Eric and get them involved in Starlings. But everything I'm going to be working on, unless I say it's an opinion, is going to be facts that we've learned. Most important, I'm not saying that maybe what you've been doing is wrong and what I'm talking about is right. It's not that black or white. I hope that as we go through the rest of the session that you're going to see how we can do this and be more effective and efficient, because we only have maybe 90 minutes of practice. Unlike the Olympic team that has 5 or 6 hours of practice a day, 6 days a week, I only have 4 with my games on Tuesdays, 3 practices of 90 minutes. I have to be more effective than the Olympic team coach, and we're going to talk about that. And I also want to say, first, do no harm. In Greek, this slide shows the Hippocratic Oath of doctors, but I kind of think it's the Hippocratic Oath of coaches, that we first must do no harm, which means primum non nocere. Oops. So one of the biggest aha moments for me, and this is my son blocking here, number 5 on the left in the German league, but one of the biggest moments for me of working with a great motor learning scientist, you're going to hear more about how to do all that just in a concentrated way on Wednesday. His name was Dr. Richard Smith, and he's listening to all the Olympic coaches explain their drills, and he was pulling his hair out because they're all doing drills. And he finally said, "You guys, you're practicing so practice looks pretty. You're practicing to practice. You're not practicing to perform, and you're the Olympic team. What are you doing?" And, our game is really ugly. And I think it's beautiful, but it's ugly in the sense that I practice by putting the ball cart in the left back area. And as coach, I threw 500 balls to the setter at the net, and they set it. That setter set it, and everybody else hit it. And that's what we were doing in 1970. And practice looked pretty good as I threw ball after ball like a machine out of this bucket. I said I don't touch the bucket anymore, but we don't throw the ball to the setter. We pass the ball to the setter, and then it's imperfect. Well, our Olympic women's team, ladies and gentlemen, is out of system 48% of the time. That's the second best team in the world. When I coach 14-year-olds, 8th graders, I'd estimate after a year of training, we're out of system 75% of the time. And that's ugly. But that's what happens in the game, and they have to problem solve that. You can't make practice look perfect by throwing every ball there and then no balls go to that spot in the entire game for the setter in a match. You got to get comfy with the ugly, with the chaos, with the imperfection, and they'll get better. But like I said, our Olympic women's team is out of system 48% of the time. That's a pretty big number. Part of learning and practice is, I'm going to call this slide not just about mathematics, but a culture of play. You want to be the first in the gym to set up the net or keep the net up the whole time if you can. And then when the first kid comes in, they go against the wall and they go pass to themselves, set to themselves, hit the ball over a duct tape on the wall at net height. And as it rebounds off the wall, they pass it to themselves, set it to themselves, and hit the ball over the net, over the stripe on the wall again. If you get good at that wall drill, you're going to be a pretty good volleyball player for your team. If you get good, as I did in the beginning of my learning, going against the wall, off the wall, back to me, off the wall, back to me, off the wall, you're learning to put the ball back to where it came from. On a team that will win, they dig the ball up first to their 5 other teammates, and then as they get more skilled, to the setter, but they don't know how to dig the ball back to the spiker. Young John Kessel did pepper all the time, which is teaching you to dig it back to the spiker. That's like the bad mistake. You don't want to send the ball back over the net so they can hit it against you, unless at the lowest level you're winning, because that's what wins. So we do pepper, but we do dig to ourselves pepper, where you crank it at me and I dig it straight up, and then I crank it at you and you dig it up near you, and then you crank it at me. Now you've got a team that digs every ball up over their court where 5 other teammates can set it, and then you can attack it and win a point. It's called a culture of play. The kid comes in, and that one kid. Now a second kid comes in and there's no net up yet. So they start to play doubles. I hit it over the stripe on the wall. You pass it, I set you, you hit it over the stripe on the wall. I dig it, you set me, and I hit it over the stripe on the wall, and we see how many we can do. If you got really good at that game against the wall, hitting every third ball over the ribbon above the net, and you dug every ball to the off the wall to your teammate, because you're just practicing doubles volleyball with your teammate, you go on the court and you do good things in the game, not send it back over the net, which is what I was training as a young coach. So what's the math here? If 4 kids get a ball, what do? They play. If 4 kids and a ball get joined by an adult, what happens? They drill. And we want to just develop this. First, kids in the gym don't read on their phone. They start to play, so they get more reps and they play over the net. If you set up the net, they play one-on-one over the net. Pass it to myself, set it to myself. See if I can beat you by a roll shot or something on a short court, and then you dig that and set it, and then you try and beat me, and we play 1 against 1. That's going to translate to I'm really skillful near the net. I don't put the ball over the net, but when I play inside the 3-meter line, I keep it up on my side of the net, and that's good volleyball. Phew. How are we doing here? Well, here's my throw up picture. So the principle is that you say to your kids, when we use the court, we will always use the net, because the stuff you can give them as homework, don't be doing that while you've got a net. You got a net, use it, because playing over the net is what you're going to get good at. But this is the most painful picture at the bottom. This is an hour into a beach coaches session. And Unlike how I and my dad played doubles in the 40s and stuff, unlike our learning, our court would have been chewed up on both sides, but because this coach wants practice to look good, he did all that, or she did, I can't remember which, I know it's one of those two genders, you know, trained everything from one side of the net. And practice did look good because they never had to hit a ball into the net or never worried about serving or net. Now, you gotta get good at serving, but you gotta use the net the entire time. So please take that lesson. Top 10 for sure concept. I promise, John, I will use the net as soon as I get in the gym, and we'll use it until we leave. So our job is to create this optimal learning environment. And these are two examples where I hope you start to critically think. Since I want to train in reality and I want to use the net, the one on the left, I have no idea why he's wasting any time doing this. He can injure their players. These players are not learning volleyball. If they want a team build, do it when you don't have the gym, and do it at somebody's house, and do it for pizza or whatever. But don't waste your gym time doing stupid things like this that's not teaching any volleyball skill. On the right, if I were to play this girl would hit the ball under the net, and the coach is throwing these little balls to her, low balls below the top of the net, and she's crushing them under the net. Yeah, the coach is getting 50% of the reps, but more importantly and painfully, she's becoming the world's best at crushing a ball into the block, under the net, into the net, and not learning how to hit over the net. That, you go away from this and start to critically think, and we're gonna do a little bit more on that. Brazil's probably the #1 nation in the sport. We're the USA and Brazil are the only two countries to be in every Olympic volleyball game since 1984. All the other countries that you may think, oh, they're good at volleyball, they're good, but they're not as good as Brazil and the US. This is from a dear friend who said, you know, talking to all these top players, their first coach was the game. And I'm not saying we're not important. I'm just saying that the game teaches the game, and the game trains the brain. And this is not about muscle memory, because there is no such thing as muscle memory. Muscles don't have little brains. We're training the brain to read and respond from the input as fast as possible. And the game trains the brain, not muscles and stuff like that. So here's what I look like. I don't know where I was for this one. Oh, Egypt. But this is the goal play ball, and Eric can probably set you up with some of these if you ask him. But when we fill in the blank, coach, when do we get to blank? In the United States, there's two answers to that: spike and play. And when you hear either of those answers, that means you haven't been doing enough of those things. We need to do them a lot. This old man right here, come on, there he is John Wooden. Passed away, arguably, ESPN, I think, said in the first 50 years of sport magazine for them, the top coach of any sport. They went through 50 or whatever. And the #1 was John Wooden. Reading anything by John Wooden, articles, books, will make you a better coach. A guy named Marv Dunphy, who won our 2000 or 19, let's see, what did he win? He won our 88 Olympic gold medal. 88 Olympic gold medal. He did his PhD thesis on this guy. He was Marv was the coach at Pepperdine, but John Wooden was very gracious, and I think they interviewed for 100 hours total. And I was getting ready to write the first impact manual, and I said, you know, in 25 words or less, what did you learn from the great John Wooden, a basketball coach, but about the principles of learning. And says, I don't need 25 words, John, I just need 2. Tell new coaches to be consistent. Watching this man coach NBA stars and brand new freshmen and whatever, he was consistent. And I know as a young coach, I was probably a little bit too much Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. I'm your friend. What are you doing? I'm your buddy. What are you doing? And, you know, the kids didn't know what John they were going to get. For everybody listening, I judge you not by your record, but by how many kids play volleyball the year after you coach them. So I know you've got to cut, but I'd love to come up with ways to not cut. At the same time, I'm just going to do everything I can to keep kids playing volleyball and never be their last coach. That's what I judge you on, not your record. I've got a friend that's an orthopedic surgeon. I got a friend that's a brain neurosurgeon, and I got a friend that's a heart surgeon. And they were watching a volleyball practice at a club, and they said, "What the heck? They're still doing the same thing they did with my oldest daughter. They're coaching the same way they did 10 years ago." And they all started talking about how in their motor skill called surgery, if they did their skill the same way they did 5 years ago, and the neurosurgeon said 2 years ago, that they would be sued for malpractice. And that resonated with me a lot. And I guess I'm thankful that you're here listening tonight, because you're working on breaking this teach the way we were taught training problem that we see in the United States. So thank you for that. This is a fun one. It's not a tough one, but the question is of this person, who is this? And in a practice, this is the ideal coach who talks less than usual and listens better than they used to and sees and anticipates stuff better than they used to. Another handout Eric can give you easily is this handout, because athletes don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So this is a one-page handout that will let you learn a lot about your kids that maybe even as a teacher at the school you're at, you don't know about them. And by knowing their favorite number, knowing their favorite candy bar, who they admire, and things they don't like about themselves and things that they do, and you'll be a better teacher in practice because you can provide the right kind of interconnection with each athlete. And that's what this slide is about. This one that's flashing up now is the Egypt Youth Worlds team that the USA team went to. Come on in. Here we go. And it says, never take the pencil from the student. And we've already talked about that. But this is the tournament in Cairo that I was doing a big clinic in, that the USA women won their first gold medal for juniors or youth ever at the world level. It was a pretty exciting place to be. And I was doing clinics for the rest of the world's teams to make them better as well. Now, we've already discussed the concept about that which you teach, you learn. And you know that if you teach something, you learn it better. And it's just really something you can do more of by reaching down to the younger kids and letting your kids and letting the elementary school kids be coached by the middle school kids, or even by the sixth graders. Because when you teach something, you learn it better. And that's really what this slide's about. So I was proud to see that in the middle of COVID that my son was doing some clinics and teaching so he could become a better player, even though he was unable to practice too much. He was practicing up on our AstroTurf here at the property, doing his jump serve, but that was about all he could do. So I mentioned that drills are the drugs of coaches. This quote is from somebody that you may hear again about on Wednesday. On the top motor learner, his book came out, 5 editions worth. And he really helped our men's team and now our women's team become better. And there's a couple sentences here I'm going to read. Drills take considerable practice time and lead up activities like you saw walking on the legs and do not produce much transfer. They don't help you play volleyball. So use them sparingly in later practice stages, which is what we're talking about, optimal practice. And then Schmidt notes that it's fruitless to try and train fundamental abilities such as quickness and balance. So concentrate on the skills. Speed ladders make you good. It's called specificity in training. Running in a speed ladder makes you good at running in a speed ladder. It doesn't make you a faster volleyball player. They're going to want to tell you that because they're selling you speed ladders, but that's just not the science. And it makes practice look good. Look how fast I can go through it. But you know, there's a really funny video on YouTube of a guy playing football like running through speed ladders. It's pretty cute, but get away from it. So another critically thinking thing I hope you go when you look at drills. This is really important to me. I type volleyball drill in, or plural drills. I got 32 million results. Yet our national team only does about a dozen game-like drills, what we call grills. As it says here, we have 100 scoring variations, but we don't stand on boxes. We don't use spike machines. We don't throw table tennis balls or tennis balls and do all these other things. We play volleyball in smaller sided games to bigger sided games as we get better. And we vary the scoring, and that's what's really the most important. All right. Eric's not a big Facebook guy, but some of you can go to a place that we established after doing a volleyball camp in Germany. The coach said, how do I stay in touch? And I said, well, you can set up a Facebook place. And he did, and we expected a couple hundred people to join it. Well, we're surprised to say that we're nearing 22,000 coaches in this Facebook group. And when I retired, they threw up Kesselville, which is, you know, using the net place, and Training Reality is there. That's Mike Hewlett, our quad amputee Paralympic coach that I'm holding the phone for, and Long Ping, the gold medal coach who coached our US team. There's a slide that I took out, but I'll just mention it, that because I took it out because it's not specifically about practice, but winning and losing are temporary. Friendships last forever. The gal in this photo on the left beat us for the gold medal in the Worlds and a couple other things, but she also coached our women's team to a silver medal in the Beijing Olympics, because winning is temporary, but friendships last forever. And she moved in, she and her husband moved in with me 4 months after they beat us for a gold medal in the '84 Olympics, because friendships are more important. So Karch is a really good coach. He's learning he's working hard on learning better and mastery all the time. And he said this in a clinic for all our top coaches, and I just thought it was awesome, that we're training to perform and not to drill. And that's just like, whoa, he got it, he gets it. We learn the most learning when practice looks like an actual game, which is really random and not super controlled. It's really kind of ugly, it's not pretty. So we do that. When I say 350 meters of regulatory stimuli, when the men and women's national team get into the gym, they have 35 courts to practice on with 48 players. We, listening here tonight, can do that by putting up a ribbon, but not by having 35 courts in our high school gym. So optimal learning theory also, Eric, can you say what optimal is? Do you remember?
I can find it real quick if you want. I'll find it.
Yeah, find it and say it. But this These two links at the bottom, your outreach guy, Eric, did an awesome job of capturing the latest way that feedback is changing in learning faster. It's done by Dr. Gabriella Wolf. And in a nutshell, and we can send you the book, as it says, Optimal Learning book will be emailed to all attendees. It's free, it's a PDF, she wants you to learn from it. But the gist of it is that you stop talking about body parts. Notice that I said superhero, and spike, not ball-shaped hands, extend your arms, like I used to as a young coach. And what she's found is that when you get rid of the body part wording, intrinsic focus, and focus on the flight of the ball and let your body do the things, that you learn faster and you can problem solve new stuff faster. And that's a big deal. That's all we're here about. That's why we do sport, not just volleyball. And when I say that, I didn't mention it, but maybe it bears mentioning. I'm working with Major League Baseball teams, NBA teams, NHL teams, national pole vaulting, USA shooting, synchronized swimming, with the principles of how you learn faster. I'm not just doing volleyball, because principles like not referencing body parts and thinking about the externalness of it makes you learn faster. You find it?
Yeah, it's the optimizing performance through intrinsic motivation and attention for learning.
Optimal. All right. So you'll get that and we can fly past it. But the feedback that you say, which is your major role as a coach, can be better done. And we're going to cover some of that as well. I love John Holt. He teaches the motor learning skill of music. And in one case, he learned to play the cello, and he just had this awesome statement for me that, I'm going to learn to play until I've learned to play, and then I'll begin to play. And as he says, it's nonsense. You learn something by doing it. There is no other way. So John Holt quotes or share how music fits what volleyball players could be doing. You want to keep things simple, because that gives rise to complex and creative, intelligent behavior. When you make all these rules, you make really stupid and simple things happen. Not going to watch it, but highly recommended that after you're done here and before Wednesday's talk on motor learning, that you go look at this clip that you're seeing called the backwards bicycle. And it's fascinating to me. The first question that we have, way more dangerous than volleyball, of course, is riding a bike. Kids die learning to ride a bike, and nobody dies learning to play volleyball. But for those of you listening tonight, answer these 4 questions yourself. Did your parents hire a bike riding coach? Did they send you to bike riding summer camp? Did they do bike riding drills? And did they do bike riding progressions where you pedaled right-footed for a while and then left-footed for a while and then you put the two together? And of course, no is what 99% of us hear. And yet you learn to ride a bike without a coach. The reason this is important is because of something called intrinsic learning over extrinsic. When you figure it out yourself, coaches, as a player, you remember it far better when you problem solve it yourself. You haven't ridden a bike for 4 years. You get on a bike and you wobble maybe for one wobble, and then you ride the bike because you learned it intrinsically. Extrinsic was young John Kessel, telling you everything to do, what to do, constantly telling you what to do. Those are the kids who pass a ball, make a mistake, and look to the bench because the answers are always coming from you. And that is the worst remembered and worst way to problem solve new things in anything you do in learning. So as we go forward here, my job as coach is to guide discovery, to ask questions, not tell you the answer. When you get into your practice, it may take a little bit longer, but it pays off in the end of better learning by guiding them to the answer. Never tell them the answer. Ask questions until they go, oh, then I should have, and you go, show me. And that's how you learn faster. Simply put, we need to become better storytellers. I love this, The Power of Story clip by Dr. Jim Lair. He's an awesome teacher of all sports. Watch it, and when you get into your practices, you will become more of a storyteller, and you'll storytell more on the bus rather than tell them answers. Surgeons do motor skill. This book by Atul Gawande, Notes on Performance, he wrote this sentence and it just blew me away 12 years ago. We have not effectively used the ability science has already given us and made efforts to change that in surgery, in being a doctor, and in volleyball it's even worse. So we need to you're going to learn a lot on Wednesday on how to be better at that. I'm going to send you an article called Decisions. It changed my life as a coach. But all your players have this thing called variance. So here's an Olympic team in Rio showing where the setter touched the ball at an Olympic level off of a serve receive. And it's all over the court. Yet there I was as a young coach throwing every ball to that one group of red line spots that's kind of above the letter N in Iran, and not ever training all the realities of what they actually do at the Olympic level. And back to my 13-year-olds, that those red dots are just everywhere. It's called variance because I'm a human, not a machine. We don't have time to do regression of the mean here, so I'm going to let the article speak for itself. So as we close out, grills for all ages. Eric can guide you to these places, talk to you. If you YouTube them, you'll find almost all of them. These are the game-like drills that work at 12-year-old and at the Olympic level. Front back means as a young coach, all I ever did was front set with my right-handed hitters, and we considered back setting hard because we didn't do it. But if you start with 12-year-olds back setting and front setting, they think it's okay and not that hard to do. And speedball, you'll see, gets more reps than a game that some of you know, queen or king of the court. You get 33% more contacts than if you do queen of the court in a game called speedball. So team 1 is doing speedball all season long. Team 2 is doing queen of the court. I did queen of the court when I was a young coach. Speedball gets more reps in the same amount of time. I'm going to be better than you. That's called optimal practice environment. So as I said, intrinsic learning is better for learning, but extrinsic information, it comes from me talking. Do you want to be a guide on the side or a safe on the stage? Don't have time to do all these, but just know that I have gotten rid of the word try. I've gotten rid of the word hate. I've gotten rid of the word don't. I've gotten rid of the word but. I can talk about why that is. I've kept the word yet. And let me give you an example on but. Eric, you're doing a great job with this webinar, but. And what we all know is coming is something that slams the door on my statement that he's doing a great job on the webinar. If you change the word but to and, Eric, you've done a great job on this webinar, and all of you listening can hear that I think Eric's done a great job. You don't know what the next thing I'm going to say is. The word but slams the door on the compliment and they can't hear it. And try is another word like that that gives them an excuse to not do it. Eric, I'm going to try and do this clinic at 8 o'clock. What did I just say? I'm not going to do the clinic. We all know that. You know, try gives you an excuse to not do it. Just get rid of it in your gym. Just say, do it. Right now, I'm good with 1 out of 10. I know you haven't done it before. Just 1 out of 10. That's all I'm asking for. I've made a plea. There's some articles about keeping kids as long as possible. This is on the American development model for USA Volleyball and other sports by Team USA. But biology doesn't know your birthday. Stephen Curry at 16 was not very good. Only one college asked for him at the collegiate level, and yet he's one of the best basketball players in history. Biology doesn't know birthdays. Keep as many kids as long as possible in the best environment of training as possible. And if you got to decide, delay as much as you can. And then there's a bunch of stuff about the American Development resources there for you. Why do I do sport? Questions on the side are there. I do sport to develop leadership. That's my reason for doing sport. Not to necessarily win volleyball games, but develop great leaders. That's why the 97%, not the 3% like my son that's on the national team and playing overseas. I love the 97% because make sure that you tell your kids this next week that you learned, if you didn't know this, that there's a national championships for the Arizona region at the national championships level of USA Volleyball for the 80 and over. This is a lifetime sport. You can get better in a long time faster. And you'll see a lot of this stuff tomorrow on Wednesday. This is the motor learning stuff I did for the Cleveland Indians. Because you've got slides, it'll let you find some of the humorous videos. And go to YouTube and type in, it's not about the nail. Go to YouTube and type in, it's just a game, hockey videos. And, you know, there's just some great humor out there that's important. And there are some awesome podcasts that I'm showing in this slideshow that I drive an hour from home to the project up here. And I'm just constantly learning thanks to people like Coach Your Brains Out and Way of Champions and Trevor Reagan's Train Ugly. And Eric may have some other ones to share, but these are the top ones. And the movies I love are In Search of Greatness and Free Solo and Buck. And as to books, anything by John Wooden I've said, Coach Your Brains Out by Billy Allen, The Talent and Culture Code and The Little Book of Talent by Dan Coyle are all awesome. Motor Learning, anything by Brene Brown, including the book Daring Greatly is awesome. And you'll get the bottom book at Optimal Learning Theory free of charge. So I've been talking to you from a place that's about 200 yards from this picture. Is the Milky Way, and those are teepees and Conestoga wagons. My wife and I are doing a legacy project of clinics and helping veterans and first responders heal. And, you know, I feel very lucky, and I guess I'm just saying, you know, we got into USA Today last Thursday as one of the top 10 glamping spots in America. If you find yourself near Colorado Springs, Denver, Vail, Breckenridge, or whatever, come on by and let's talk in a teepee or talk on outside about how to do things. So my email here is at msn.com now. It's no longer at USAV. I do Twitter and send some stuff out that way. You can reach me by cell. I work at the World Para Volley level still. That's the link to our project. And thank you very much. Any questions as we hit 9:04? I don't know if we were going an hour, Eric, or 90 minutes, but I pushed it to an hour.
No, we're good. We'll take whatever. I'm going to let the audience know that if you have questions, now's the time to start putting them in the question selection there. I have one that was texted to me, John, so we'll start with that one. And it was pretty simple. It said, if you could make 3 changes for practice tomorrow, what would be the 3 things that you would want to see or you would change from a coach that thought kind of how they were taught before?
Yeah. So the first change is that I would probably play speed ball at least 15 minutes every day. And that's because the kids love it. It's chaotic, it's fun. I can do speed ball on the ribbon and go 3 against 3 or 2 against 2 against 2 on one side. And I can, if I have 15 or, keeping kids if I can. So I've got 16 on my roster. And so when I do the ribbon down the middle of the court for about 45 minutes of my hour practice, what it allows me to do is just get tons of reps on these courts that are on each half the normal court, but the ribbon is up at game like height. So speed ball, if I practiced an hour and 50 minutes in a 2-hour practice, and if I haven't done speed ball, I go, hey, how's practice? Oh, this is great, but when are we doing speed ball? So I let that be a way to score. I'd serve more, and I would have one receiver reading the ball coming over the net on the same side of the on each side of the net. You see, young John Kessel, knowing serving was important, said serve, and 12 or 16 kids went back and served balls over the net for 2, 3, even 10 minutes sometimes. How many of those balls got read by a serve receiver? And sadly, for about a decade, the answer was none. I mean, maybe 500,000 balls got served and none of them got read. Back to reading being the most important skill in volleyball, I've asked Kerry Walsh, every Olympic gold medalist and every libero, this same question. Because you got to win, it's in the mini volleyball book, chapter like 2. You got to win the serve receive battle I spoke of earlier. How much of your success, Misty May, how much of your success, Karch Karai, serve receiving and passing the ball to your setter so we can actually play volleyball happens before the ball comes over the net? And without any science to it, but in 100% of the players, they have said 80 to 90%. So let's wrap our heads around that. 80 to 90% of my success at sending the ball to my setter as a serve receiver has happened on the other side of the net by the opponents as it comes in. And the last 10% is like, I don't have much time left, but I can do a little tiny bit. And yet, what did I do? I didn't do that reading. I served and let the ball hit the floor, or I partner passed from in front of the net and got good at the 10% and never got good at the 90%. So I'd want to say, whenever I serve, and I don't make them serve like wait, they just serve whenever they want to. But I've always got a serve receiver on each side of the net doing the best they can to serve receive those balls. Okay? That would be the second thing. And then I do a lot more front back. And what that means is that as a young coach, I hit only zone 4, the left side, and didn't practice much front setting. Now, you can find this, Eric can guide you to it. I put the 2 setters in the setter slot, roughly the group on the left side, pass set hit with either the ball coming over the net easy or from the setter throws it to them, they pass it back to the setter, then they hit it, but they're pass setting and hitting on the front set, and the other setter is setting the back set. And if you've got a young team or a less skilled team, you start doing that as a back row attack. You start with A pipe D or off the net stuff. And that's because the off the net stuff is it's safer for the variance that young kids have, where they screw up and set too far off the net and too close to the net. As a young coach, I put my setter right on the net, and half the balls flew over the net because the variance of kids passing to someone at the net is wide, and they sent a lot of balls over the net, and I don't let that happen. And now I start off the net with back row attacking for the first 5 minutes of hitting, front and back, and then I get closer and closer. Those would be my three. Any other questions?
Yeah, a couple here real quick. I just want to remind everybody a couple quick things. Again, give me your questions as quick as you can. Also, my email addresses and John's email address are under the chat button that you can hit that. And so all the books and the articles and the videos and things that John talked about in this presentation, if you email me at one of those two addresses, I'll make sure you get all of them. Holly McLean asks, what does 76% of wooden was specific refer to on that slide about 5 or 6 back?
Yeah, nice catch. And this is a time thing, but they researched him as they spoke to all his UCLA players, and his wording was very specific. So here's young John Kessel. That's it. Good job. Way to go. Oh, I like that. Oh, don't do that. I wasn't specific. And my kids, knowing that I want to be specific, when I'm not specific, they'll say, Coach, care to be more specific? And I laugh and I go, yeah, that's my job. I forgot. In my case, I'm not saying, Holly, to not be encouraging. What I'm saying is this. I want you to say something like, that's it, comma, fill in the blank. What is the it that you're so excited about? Be specific. Otherwise, that's it. They might be thinking, oh, he likes my shoelaces, or something. You've got to be more specific. Hopefully that answers that. And they said, my God, in Wooden's coaching, when he was giving feedback, he was always specific. What's next?
Another online question. You've been all over the world. You've coached coaches in a lot of different countries, continents, poor countries, rich countries. Is there certain things that you see from coaches across the globe that we need to do better, that we need to change?
What a cool question. I guess what I see in the top coaches worldwide, whether it's Olympic or pro or whatever, or even at the club level, is that they're lifelong learners. It's called ancora imparo in Italian. And that came from Michelangelo, who at the age of 87 was painting. And he reached down to his assistants and said, ancora imparo. Here he is painting the Sistine Chapel and maybe the best painter in the history of humanness. And he says, I'm still learning. And so that desire to just keep learning is what I see out of the top coaches worldwide. And then there's a desire to, they just let the game teach the game. I mean, you go to Vanuatu and you're having to use a rope because they don't have a net, but as long as their rope's up, they can figure out if it went under the net or over the net, I mean, you go to El Salvador and there's one indoor gym in the nation, one. Everything else is outdoors and concrete and things like that. So they let the game teach the game, and they coach as these questioners and guided discoverers, and they realize that the players play and the coaches sit on the bench in a match. And so I've got to create 12 little assistant coaches that can problem solve on their own without me, because that's what's happening in good teams. In the middle of a 3-hit rally, they problem solve a new creative solution and stuff. I think that's the other thing that comes to mind. And they love volleyball.
Okay.
Is that it?
A guy named Russ Walker says hello. I'm supposed to tell you that.
Ah,
And
hello, Albuquerque.
and Holly asked another question. Thoughts on how film breakdown ties into letting the game teach the game?
Yeah, I think we're getting into an area that is two things. One, feedback is best when it's not only specific, but immediate. And so I love that the $5 million system at the Olympic Training Center to have video delay in a practice is now able to be done by a projector hooked up to your iPhone using a video delay app like Bust a Move, Bam Video Delay. I love that as a coach, I can say, go look at that because I saw what I want them to do. Instead of catching them being wrong, I catch them being good in practice. And you'll learn from Mike's summary feedback where if they do four right and one wrong, you talk about the four right. If they do three right and two wrong, you talk about the three right. You coach on the averages. You say, gosh, they've done 7 out of 10 right. You don't mention the three wrong. You talk to the 7. And the video delay system that cost millions is now so cheap, lets me catch them being good and then let them see it immediately as they step out because I've got it on a 15-second delay of what's happening on the court. And the other parts, I guess, are kind of tied into that as far as how do I spend my time? I videotape myself and watch to make sure that I'm body posture in a good way and encouraging and not talking too much and just being a better coach as well. I watch myself. I can also add, Holly, that as a young coach, because I would catch them being wrong, that's what my videos were about. And now I let the errors I don't mention it. I just show the good things that are happening. Now, I've got a son who does 9 things wrong and 1 right. And all he'll talk about is the right one. And I've got an amazing daughter getting her master's in speech pathology right now at CU Boulder, who would do 9 things right and 1 wrong. And she would rip herself up about the 1 wrong. So if you're a guy coaching gals, you gotta stay on the fact that the females are going to, in general, put themselves down, and we need to build them up. And that carries back into this leadership role. I would challenge all of you that are coaching females to encourage your athletes after they leave your program to not let that same kind of tendency happen in job application. I see guys who have 2 out of 10 traits in a job application apply, and they think they have it. And I see my daughter and other friends that are females not apply, even if they have 6 or 7 of the attributes being requested, because they don't think they're ready or good enough. No, you got ladies, please apply. We're just wonderfully different because we're humans and we have 2 marvelous genders. Kathy DeBoer calls it, I think we say, an impact. Men battle, and through battling they bond. You guys that are coaching women, you have to bond them in general for them to battle for you. Are there women who love to battle? Yes. Are there men who would rather bond? Yes. But in general, we see teams that are bonded on female side will battle really hard versus guys will, through the fight and through cursing each other and they'll go out and have a beer that night, but they battle in order to bond themselves. Anything else?
Yeah, just want to let everybody know again, both my email and John's email is under the chat button at the moment. On Wednesday, Mike Wall, the U.S. men's national team assistant coach, and he's also the director of gold medal squared volleyball. He will spend an hour to hour and 15 minutes with us talking about motor learning, some of the stuff of what John talked about tonight, bringing the science to the game. And I just want to thank John for his time and his energy as always. It was incredible. John, I appreciate it very, very, very much. Thank you so much. And
I'm going to say again, go to Eric's blog, because Eric's blog is filled with learning stuff that will help you be a better teacher of the game.
I appreciate that. Again, the start time for Wednesday's webinar is 7:30, not 7 o'clock, 7:30. And we look forward to seeing y'all there. John, thank you so much. Best wishes to you and your family. And everybody, enjoy your evenings. And thank you very much for joining us, and have a good night.